So in this video we're going to be multiplying and dividing integers. I added in a slide here just so that we can talk number lines, because that's what we use with adding and subtracting. So I'm going to create a number line here. We're going to start at 0. So we're going to start with something as simple as 3 times 4, which would be 3 groups of 4. And so we're going to start at 0, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm just going to go to 10. Alright, because that's not far enough. 10, 11, 12. Alright, so starting at 0, my groups of 4, I'm going to go 4. That's one group. And then my next 4, which takes us to 8. That's the second group. And then the third group, which takes us to our answer, which is 12. So 3 times 4 is 12, because we've got 3 skips of 4. So when we think of negatives, so if we do, and we want our negative to always be the second number if possible, we do 3 times negative 4. What happens is we just go, remember that negative tells us to go the opposite direction. So whereas here, 3 groups of 4, we're counting by 4s positively. Here, we're going to be counting by negatives. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So again, we start at 0. And the reason we're doing this is there's a couple number lines in your homework, but it also explains. So I'm starting at 0, and instead of going right, the negative tells me I move left. So I'm going to go 4, 4, so that's group 1, group 2, group 3, and so now my answer is a negative 12, because I went 3 groups of 4 to the left. Which, you know, that makes sense. Now, what may make it a little bit more difficult is, but what if we have negative times a negative? Well, what's that going to make this happen? What is that going to do? Well, this first negative would tell us we would go to the left, but then the second negative tells us that we're going to change course. And so where we thought we were going left, now we're going to make it a positive, because that negative tells us to go the opposite direction. So if I had 0 here, and just for the sake of saving space and time, we're just going to count by 4s here. So if this was a positive 3 and a negative 4, we would go to the left. But because this is a negative 3, it's telling us, okay, we're going to move to the left. But then we hit that negative 4, which then tells us to change directions. And so now we're going to go right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's our 3 groups. So when you've ever sat there and thought, well, why would 2 negatives make a positive? That is a reason why 2 negatives make a positive. One tells you to go left, and the other one tells you to change your direction, like we were talking when adding integers. So, in looking at this, our 3 times 4 gave us a positive 12, and our negative 3 times a negative 4 gives us a positive 12. So that would tell us that if we're multiplying with the same signs, that our answer will be positive. And then I only did one of them. If I would have said negative 3 times 4, what we would have done is changed the use the commutative property. I talked about that with a couple classes. So 4 times -3, changed it to where I was making 4 groups of -3, which still equals a -12. But we're moving it just so that we know this one's telling us which direction to go. And so either way, if I have one negative, one positive, our answers end up being negative. So if we're multiplying with different signs, then we have our answer will be negative. So multiplying same signs, positive times positive equals positive, negative times negative equals positive. I was adding in my head for a second there. Positive times negative equals negative, but a negative times a positive will also equal a negative. And so that's what we're thinking when we are multiplying, technically also dividing integers. So as we go through here, 3 times 5, they're both positive, so then I just have to think, what is 3 times 5? Well, that equals 15, and it's positive because we have the same sign. Although when we look at B, we have a negative times a positive. So by the rules we've made for ourselves, we're going to use the fact that negative times a positive is going to be negative. And then 5 times 8 is 40. Negative times a negative, we have the same sign, so it's going to be positive. And then we just think, what's 6 times 4? And that is 24. And then we have positive times a negative, so those are different signs, so our answer is going to be negative. And then I just have to think, well, what is 7 times 3? And that's 21. So again, same signs give us positive, different signs give us negative. Keep in mind, this is for multiplying and dividing. This does not work for adding and subtracting. We had our own rules for those. So it comes to the same if we're doing dividing. Dividing is just the inverse of multiplying. So if we have the same sign, so a positive divided by a positive, we're going to get a positive answer. If we have a negative divided by a negative, we're going to get a positive answer. So if we have the same signs, the answer will be positive. We are dividing with different signs, so like a positive divided by a negative, or a negative divided by a positive, then either one of these is going to give us a negative answer. So answer will be negative. And I didn't mention, being 8th graders, our multiplication is going to either be a dot, that's how we'll indicate it, or we're going to put them in parentheses and right next to each other. So that tells us to multiply. And we'll talk more about that as we continue through class. But we're back to dividing. So it's basically the same rules. So here I have 6 divided by 2. So fraction bars can indicate division. So here we have that 6 divided by 2. They're both positive. And so this is just going to be a positive answer. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. Here we have a negative divided by a positive. So because they're different signs, it's going to be negative. And then 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then we have a negative divided by a negative, which will give us a positive answer. And then 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then our positive divided by a negative is going to give us another negative answer because we got different signs, and 100 divided by 4 is 25. So when it comes to multiplying and dividing, same signs, we get a positive answer. Different signs, we get a negative answer. It's as simple as that. Once you get that figured out, other than that, it's just actually doing the multiplication or the division. And that is it.